hard to believe. Check your calendars, folks. It's nearly July, as in that's tomorrow, but here we are. Here on the eve of July 1st, we're going to start with new laws taking effect, really, in the next 12 hours. Then we're going to spend some time unwinding the new hemp regulations in particular that are reshaping the hemp business in Tennessee with much tighter restrictions on products being sold with THC. Later this hour, news from an NAACP town hall on the data center planned for the historic campus of Fisk University, and a couple of timely remembrances for community figures who often work behind the scenes here in Middle Tennessee. You're going to want to stay around for that. All right, but new laws up first. Mariana Bacquiao is back. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Mariana covers the state legislature for us as our power and equity reporter at WPLN. Reminder, we're streaming video at our YouTube page. If you want to check us out, youtube.com/@WPLN. Before we dive in here, it is worth mentioning that in a 6-3 decision released this morning, the Supreme Court ruled against President Trump's executive order and upheld birthright citizenship. And Tennessee state lawmakers passed a group of immigration laws backed by the White House that does go into effect tomorrow, though. Sheriffs and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. There was a bill that requires all sheriff's offices in the state to partner with federal immigration authorities. I guess that's happening tomorrow. Like, does even, let's say, Davidson County Sheriff Darren Hall have to do something different tomorrow?
Well, here in Davidson County, there is part of the requirement of requiring all these sheriffs to partner with ICE is that it's sheriffs that are certified under POST. I forget the acronym, what it stands for exactly in this moment. But Davidson County's sheriff's office doesn't have that certification.
Oh, because they really simply manage the jails for the most part. They're not out patrolling in cars.
Exactly. And this particular program, the 287G program, that's a formalized partnership with ICE agents. Of course, there are different models. But Davidson County used to have an agreement and ended it after a pretty high-profile lawsuit, which involved a pregnant woman who, part of her labor was spent shackled in the jail. Yeah, Sheriff Hall was very involved in 287G and advocating for it at the time. Mm-hmm. All right, so you're saying, though, that if a sheriff's office like Davidson County Sheriff's is not involved in direct law enforcement, they actually don't have to do something new starting tomorrow. Exactly. We'll see how state lawmakers respond to that. In implementing this 287G law, House Speaker Cameron Sexton had said that there's been these accusations of Nashville being a sanctuary city, legally by definition, not a sanctuary city. Tennessee has policies against it. But House Speaker Cameron Sexton has sort of thrown this around as, Nashville is finding these loopholes to not cooperate with ICE, and that makes it a sanctuary city. So this is legislation that he was really spearheading. It has, the stamp of approval from Republican leadership. We'll likely see some sort of legislation in response. Okay. All right. Immigration official confidentiality. So this law prohibits state and local governments from releasing names, addresses, phone numbers, or other personal information of federal, state, or local law enforcement officers involved in immigration enforcement. Is that something that was a direct response to something else that was happening here? Exactly. So, like I mentioned, sometimes we see these laws in response to what Nashville does. And last year, last May, when there were these ICE raids around Nashville's immigrant corridor, there's a reporting process for ICE to basically let MNPD, Metro Nashville government know, hey, we're operating. And the names of officers involved were, as the mayor says, accidentally posted online. They were quickly taken down. Nothing like that has happened since. But this law is sort of a response to that, of making it a crime to release that kind of sensitive information. I see. So there's no question about it there. Also, in terms of law enforcement and new laws that take effect tomorrow, deadly force by civilians, the state legislature changed the standards for allowing deadly force to protect property. So this is, I assume, for a civilian or for law enforcement? This is for a civilian. I believe this was actually our Metro reporter, Cynthia Abrams, did much of the reporting on this law. But my understanding is it's sort of furthering that, how far can you protect your own property as a civilian?
Right. All right. So in terms of education, there was a new law passed that limits screens in schools. A bill prohibits students from accessing digital devices at school. They'll also be prohibited from accessing any form of social media on school-provided internet. Do we know how that's all going to work just yet?
In this case, I would defer to our education reporter, Camelia Burris.
Well, she'll be in here momentarily, so
she'll let us know. But I think we're seeing a lot of this legislation, not just in Tennessee, but nationwide, as classrooms are having to wrestle with the existence of AI, how students access AI, and the proliferation of that is just so fast that are our classrooms, are our teachers, able to keep up with the flow of this advancement of AI.
I want to ask about the Charlie Kirk Act that generally it does a number of things, but what was the attempt here by the state legislature to pass this this act that honors Charlie Kirk, who of course was assassinated on a college campus?
So this act had several parts. Some of those parts did not make it into the final bill. One of the biggest things is just having colleges sign on to the University of Chicago's freedom of speech agreement, which is something that universities here may have already done.
It's kind of like a neutrality statement, right?
Exactly. And especially this was not something that lawmakers crafted themselves. This was sort of an existing thing that, academics had already agreed on. So the reaction to that, I would say, fairly positive.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised in getting ready for today and looking at this that, I had gotten the impression it was going to require universities to include more conservative viewpoints. But it sounds like it was much more about neutrality. Even Ken Paulson of the Free Speech Center at MTSU said it's like a net positive. So do we think it really changes much of anything?
Well, there are certain other aspects that got a little bit more pushback in its original form. The bill would have made it easier to deny LGBTQ students leadership positions based on their, quote, lifestyle, as the language in the bill initially said. One thing that critics have pointed out is that it does have a clause for, a university cannot deny a speaker or cannot uninvite a speaker that's been invited by a student group. And they've included, at first it was just the opposition to abortion, gay rights, those sorts of views.
It listed issues.
It listed issues. Those were the things that were protected, the opposition to those issues. Final version of the bill is just their views on those issues. Of course, there are already some sort of protections for LGBTQ rights and things like that. So this has, I would say, done more to advance the protection for conservative speakers, but it does cover speakers of, both sides of the political spectrum.
And I know that there were some almost like punishments for walkouts, which was a big issue. But it sounds like that was sort of worked out where you could personally walk out of an event and not risk some kind of punishment.
But there is still, if you were to stage a walkout,
if you stage something that was like a demonstration to sort of disrupt the entire event.
If there was a speaker you disagreed with and you and your fellow students got together, went to the assembly, and walked out at a certain point, you could still face disciplinary action.
Riley Gaines' Women's Safety and Protection Act, certainly top of mind, as we know what the Supreme Court ruled on today related to transgender women in male sports. But in looking at what this is, it almost sounds a lot like the bathroom bills that the state legislature has passed. Is that just a new bathroom bill with a new name?
Yeah, there is a question of, this is ground we might have already tread. Of course, now that ground comes with Riley Gaines's name.
Right. A swimmer who
tied for fifth with a transgender woman from the University of Kentucky. And so ever since that, she has become, sort of the face of keeping transgender women out of women's sports. And a recent Southern Poverty Law Center found that her influence is growing across state houses. We're the third, I believe, state house to adopt some sort of resolution with her name. And the other thing that this does is it also addresses gendered spaces in prisons. So having transgender women go to a male prison.
I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville, and we're kind of calling it This is Nashville Today. It's what's happening here and now. We're talking about new laws taking effect tomorrow. One of the biggest changes are new restrictions on hemp and THC. And joining us to talk about how much is going to change in Tennessee's world of THC is Matt Chapman, who is president of Lab Canna. Welcome to This is Nashville.
Thanks for having me. This is the only two radio stations I listen to come out of this building. So,
do they? Oh,
yeah,
and WNXP out of the cool corner of the building, as I like to call it. Well, thanks for joining Mariana and me to talk through this, because a lot has been discussed, and you know it better than us. So a lot of hemp producers seem to think that these THC regulations might even kind of kill the industry, so they're heading to friendlier states. You're sticking around. Why?
It's probably a combination of stubbornness and tenacity, I guess. Either that or a little bit of stupidity. But, I mean, this is my home, and we like catering to the people of Nashville and don't plan on stopping.
Well, hemp rules have kind of been widened over the last 10 years, and I guess there was 1 year where it really kind of opened up. It sort of seems like the genie's out of the bottle. I think for even just the casual consumer, you see THC products all over the place. Can you really put the genie back in the bottle?
Not really. And honestly, if you were to do so, these people aren't going to stop using cannabis. So all you've really done is turned regular users into more or less like lower tier criminals.
Well, Mariana, what do hemp producers believe they'll find in other states? I mean, you had a story on Morning Edition today that folks can go listen to. But yeah, why are people leaving?
So a lot of people are, crossing the border into North Carolina. I talked to Frederick Hampton of the Tennessee Hemp Alliance. And he says that's basically where everybody is going. This one little place is sort of getting all of Tennessee's growers who are moving there. And these are, of course, bigger businesses that have been able to weather this change a little better. Not everybody has the resources to sort of pick up and move their entire business. I talked to somebody from Burning Acre, which is moving from Columbia, Tennessee to North Carolina. And one of their founders is still living in Columbia, just making that commute all the way to North Carolina. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so Matt, is this something that you're hearing from? I imagine there's a lot of chatter in your business about like what to do. What do you hear other people doing, and is it just sort of a temporary thing until regulations change yet again?
I don't know that it'd be a temporary move. I mean, a lot of these people have fully uprooted their businesses and moved to North Carolina. So to undo that would be quite an investment.
Well, all right. So part of these new rules include that you now have to work with the Alcohol and Beverage Commission. And, alcohol's been in competition with THC. So I'm wondering what's going on here. Is it like the alcohol industry's getting a slice of the THC pie, or like do you anticipate them trying to restrict THC to some degree?
I don't know that it's in their best interest to fully restrict anything, especially the number of businesses. I mean, even, Budweiser and all kinds of big companies have already invested in cannabis beverages. So to push back against that would be a bit of a misstep. It's mostly due to the fact that younger people just aren't drinking as much as they used to.
It's not just them swapping that for THC?
I mean, it is in a sense. They lost a fair amount of money last year, so anything they can do to recoup that is probably a good move.
Mariana.
And that difference actually from moving, the industry under, under sort of an alcohol regulation is really just because Tennessee the agriculture department could not really keep up with the amount of, checking product for this, because they're used to working with, more standard issue like crops, your corn, your blackberries, your tomatoes.
Yeah.
And so hemp comes with all of these regulations that they were really not staffed or prepared to do. So that's really sort of the motivator behind putting it under alcohol. And that is actually a change that went into effect in January, which is when, this THCA ban was supposed to go into effect. But, businesses have been given a little bit more time. So their grower license expires midnight tonight.
All right. So, Matthew, what does that mean for you that your THCA grower license expires this evening?
Well, we actually got out of the growing business a few years back, mostly just because of the surplus of available material.
Oh, why break your back in the sun when there's plenty of
It's
THC
everywhere.
out there?
Yeah.
I see.
And at the time, you could still import cannabinoids within the state. So,
Okay.
States like Oklahoma, pretty much everywhere around us other than Kentucky, there's an abundance of flower to be purchased.
Okay. So what does it mean to you, the new regulations? Like what actually will you have to change?
More or less, it's just the loss of smokable flower.
Okay.
Other than that, it's kind of the same. I mean, you'll lose some vape products, but your edibles, your beverages, topicals, anything along those lines, they remain the same.
So explain to me the smokable flower and what's changing there.
Well, so you could still grow CBD or CBG flower. Obviously, you're not going to have the same sort of clientele for that because people are smoking THCA for a reason, and you're not
saying a
gonna get that
CBD
effect.
flower does not have enough THC in it for people to get the effect they're
A
really looking for.
negligible amount. It's fully non-psychoactive.
Got it. So, but that was a big part of your business, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of everybody's business. There's going to be a pretty significant hit. I mean, it'd be a safe assumption to say that that's more or less somewhere between 70 and 80% of everybody's revenues right now.
Wow. What is the state expecting to happen, Mariana?
Well, we have sort of the budget projection from the state has, anticipated growth in this industry.
Even this year?
This year, yes.
Because they have a tax on this. That's how it's paid for, but also it generates revenue for the rest of the budget, correct?
It does. And there's more capital requirements this year. There's more taxes. And, the math there is raising taxes on this industry that we view as profitable, that, nationwide might be growing. But more recent projections have seen, revenue falling by $20 million.
Really? Revenue for the state?
Revenue for the state falling.
I see. Well, Matthew, I think this is, especially for folks who don't follow it closely, can be so confusing. Like, what you could walk in a place, you're like, wait, have we legalized marijuana or something? Because a lot of places just look like a weed shop. Will those things have to go away?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to have to restructure the way that they do business. I mean, on the retail side of things, you're going to have to, again, focus on edibles, topicals. You're going to have to get creative. I mean, that's sort of always been the wrath of this industry's path. There's a constant back and forth legislatively. So you've had to pivot a bunch of different times. I mean, we did the processing side of things early on, mostly just because the numbers were great. Before COVID, we did a restaurant. We've done, pretty much anything you can think of, we've gone down that path. At this point, we're mainly in the retail and contract manufacturing space. So the only thing that won't really change it would be the contract manufacturing, so long as it's out of state. But we can't go direct to like B2B. So if I were to manufacture something for you, that's going to have to be parked at a wholesaler, in this case a liquor distributor, before it can go to the customer who made that purchase.
Really? So they've added a middleman there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Mariana.
And I think another product that even like growers, farmers that I spoke with who were okay with THCA going away, but have sort of fretted over the loss of full spectrum CBD, which is CBD with THC. And the consensus there is it's not really doing as much. Just CBD alone doesn't really help, people who might be older manage their pain symptoms, especially some of the farmers I spoke to. They use it themselves. They're doing, a lot of labor in these fields, and they find relief in that.
Well, Matthew, does it have you scratching your head if essentially if THC is the thing you're trying to crack down on, that the edible forms are fine, but the smokable flower is not anymore?
Yeah, it's a little nitpicky. And it doesn't make a ton of sense, especially coming from a state that touts itself as one that supports small business and agriculture.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's before even getting into the revenues generated from taxes.
Right. Well, but would this be the case that if somebody listening has been, conveniently getting their, 15 milligram THC, whatever, gummies, edibles, that should still be available even tomorrow?
So that will still be available tomorrow. And oddly enough, there's no regulation against possession of THCA flower. So any citizen could go online and order THCA flower, have it mailed to their house, and it is totally fine. We just can't sell it to you.
Can't sell it. Well, does that mean there's like a fire sale going on today of the few products that are no longer allowed?
There most certainly is.
So get your deals today. Come on down. Mariana, I don't know. Are we seeing any of that? Are people just sort of getting rid of stuff that's suddenly illegal tomorrow?
I actually, for the story I was working on, was hoping to go to sort of like a going out of business sale for this. But what I found is not a lot of people in Nashville are going out of business, at least yet. They're still holding on to, for a lot of these vape shops, they still have nicotine. They still have other products. They still have drinks and edibles and things like that to sell. So a lot of people, here in the city in particular, are trying to stick it out.
Well, Mariana Bacchiao, Power and Equity reporter here in the WPLN newsroom, and Matt Chapman, president of Lab Canna, sticking it out with Tennessee's new restrictions on hemp. Thank you both for enlightening us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We need to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hit a few of the high points on a timely town hall meeting held last night at Lee Chapel AME near the campus of Fisk University. It's all about the data center planned for that historic campus. Stay with us for the latest. This is Nashville Today.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Hands On, powered by United Way of Greater Nashville, serving 9 counties across Middle Tennessee, connecting volunteers with local nonprofit projects. More at handson.unitedwaygreaternashville.org. And Amazon, proud sponsor of WPLN's Daily Show, This is Nashville, engaging our differences so we can discover our unity. More on Amazon's community work at aboutamazon.com. And HealthStream, healthcare provider of learning, clinical development, credentialing, and scheduling software, working to streamline everyday tasks to foster a workplace where people flourish and care thrives. More at healthstream.com/NPR.
Hi, I'm Scarlett Poi. I'm from East Nashville. One thing I love about Nashville is the people and the culture. I think of the East Nashville Tomato Fest. It brings together a lot of people from the neighborhood. It's like a ritual that a lot of people look forward to every year. Not only is it to eat a lot of tomatoes and basil and the caprese sandwich, but it's also about unity. Maybe you're from East Nashville, maybe you're not, but it's an experience everybody can enjoy.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. A few hundred turned out last night to voice their concerns about a planned data center on the campus of Fisk University. And if not voice concerns, at least hear what the plan is. This town hall meeting fell on the same day that Mayor Freddie O'Connell announced an all-out attempt to stop another data center from being built across town in an industrial area near the Nashville Zoo. But this was all about Fisk. At the Fisk Town Hall, President Agenia Clark suggested there really was no pushback about the university's plans until the zoo data center hit the headlines.
I will tell you that it was the advent of the zoo project that seemed to have triggered an interest in what Fisk was doing, and Fisk had announced what they were doing transparently to everyone 6 weeks ahead of all of a sudden. But this is what is already happening.
WPLN's education reporter Camelia Burris was there and is here now. Brings us the latest. Welcome, Camelia.
Thank you, Blake.
Our new data center reporter. Just kidding. But
Just kidding.
Yeah, I remember when you came back from the initial press conference when Fisk was announcing their big $1 billion development, and this data center was part of it. And I think we had a discussion. I was like, do they mean like a data center? Did you get more details last night?
Well, Blake, there's still a lot that's not known, but Dr. Clark, the president of Fisk, wanted to make sure that people knew that they're still deciding what kind of data center it's going to be. She says reports that it's going to be an AI data center are not correct, but she doesn't know what kind of center it will be.
Right.
And she's also not sure who's going to fund it. She's still meeting with people and talking to people, but she wants to make sure that it's a data center that doesn't cause environmental harm to North Nashville.
Then why a data center? If it's getting so much pushback, she's like, it's not going to be one of those data centers. It's not going to be one of these. What is the reason? Yeah.
Well, I interviewed her a couple weeks ago, and she said the idea actually came from a Fisk graduate who was saying this would be a good way to bring more positive attention to the school. I'm not sure how positive it's been yet, but
Right.
it would be a good way to bring more attention to the school and also a way to generate more resources for the school, because she talked about how under-resourced it is as an HBCU. A lot of them are. And she was saying that people were telling her that maybe she should try to find another way to generate income or generate money. And she was saying that it's difficult to fundraise without having a new vision. And she wants to give investors something to, like, a plan for the future. And she said this quantum leap, as she calls it, is the plan for the future to get more people to invest in it as well.
So the idea is to have a data center that's there on campus, and you would have an outside company partner with you, and there would be revenue generated for the university's budget as part of the project.
Yes, but she wanted to make sure people knew that she's not going to sell any land. So Fisk would still continue to own the land, so maybe some type of land lease. And she's working with people to figure out who would be the best partner for that.
Well, what was the mood in the room?
I would say the mood was people were eager for information. There were people there who had on no data centers, and they were definitely against it. But there were a lot of people who were applauding Dr. Clark when she was talking about the positive benefits of what it can bring to the university. So I think people really were just there to find out information. But they weren't allowed to ask questions directly. They made people write their questions on a card. So I didn't get to hear the emotion when people were asking questions, which I was looking forward to. But I would say people went there really just wanting to know. And I think a lot of people want to be supportive. They just want more information about what's going on.
Well, and you tracked down a few of those folks afterwards, I suppose, since they weren't allowed to ask their questions themselves, and had to write them down. You talked to Poet Williams, who's a community ambassador for the Jefferson Street Corridor Study.
Most public comments, you get up at the microphone and you ask. I feel like it was a way to filter what questions we're going to ask, but the people in the crowd, they got those hard questions asked anyway.
Sounds like Poet Williams didn't mind in the end, but Jane Hussein is with the Nashville Peace and Justice Center and had another idea.
It was a total waste of time and an insult to our intelligence. And I came ready to give President Clark the benefit of the doubt, but now my suspicions are tripled.
Did organizers explain why people weren't allowed to speak for themselves?
Yeah, I spoke to Timothy Hughes, the NAACP president.
Who's been on the show.
Yeah, and he was saying that it was more of a time constraint issue. So he asked about 10 questions at a time and allowed Dr. Clark to answer them. So he was saying that was the main reason for that.
Well, you had State Senator Charlene Oliver and Metro Councilman Brandon Taylor both there on the stage. Was that a sign of their support for the project or just that they're listening?
So Taylor did not say if he supported it or not.
This is the Metro Councilman.
Yes, sorry. And but Senator Oliver did say that she at this time was opposed to it, but only because she didn't have enough information about it. So she didn't want to support something that could potentially harm the people in the district that she represents.
Well, and the NAACP Nashville chapter organized this. Are they a neutral party here or also kind of resistant?
They seem open to it. They seem supportive. Like the president of NAACP is a Fisk graduate.
Right,
and
Timothy Hughes.
And he's been on this show before, and he seems to be open to it depending on what it is. So I think that he and a lot of people, I know there's a lot of pushback that's against it, but I think a lot of people are open to something that will bring more revenue to Fisk and help it be financially sustainable.
Well, obviously a lot of the people who are speaking up and who've even come through our building talking about this, whether it's on the air or just on the side, are folks who are alums of Fisk and love the university and want the best for it. But what are the biggest questions that these sort of concerned alums have and feel like haven't been answered yet?
Well, a lot of people were asking about, have there been environmental studies to show what kind of harm could happen? And Dr. Clark said that they are continuing to do those, and they're modeling them after data centers that have been LEED certified, meaning they won't cause environmental damage. So that was the main question, but also people really want to know what kind of data center it will be and who's funding it. And since that's still up in the air, I talked to some people who say they want to support it, but they don't want to go on the record of saying they're supporting it because if it's bad, they don't want that to come back on them. So I think people just really want to know what kind of center it will be and who's funding it are the main questions.
Which sounds like it's still yet to be determined. Did I understand correctly that Fisk President Agina Clark said she supports a moratorium on data center construction, which, Mayor Freddie O'Connell has now gotten behind, the Metro Council is talking about over the next few weeks?
So Dr. Clark has continuously said that she understands why people are against dirty data centers, and she wants to make sure that she separates herself from those type of centers. So she said she understands why people may not be supportive of like the one near the zoo, and she was saying hers is different because it's going to be LEED certified. So she did say that she's supportive of making sure that there are no more data centers that are going to cause harm.
I see. Which I assume means we don't know how that legislation in the Metro Council could affect this project at Fisk.
Right. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. How far down the road is it? I mean, I think the more I'm hearing, the more it sounds like this is an idea more than like a real plan of what we're precisely going to do at Fisk.
Right. So Dr. Clark is calling it an innovation center, and one component will be a data center. And from what I'm understanding is that she's still meeting with people to determine who's going to fund it. But I feel like there will be a data center, but we don't know what kind it's going to be. But it sounds like it's on the process of having it. It's just deciding who will be the right partner and what will be beneficial to Fisk if they do it.
Do we know how much revenue potential there is from having a data center on campus? She talked about that last night?
No, she just mentioned that it will be a way to make sure that Fisk has long-term financial stability.
WPLN's Camelia Burris on Fisk University's plans for a data center on campus. Not the last we'll hear about this, I'm sure. Thank you so much for covering it for us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
When we come back, we're going to remember two community figures who greatly affected the community in positive ways, both seen and unseen. Stay with us. This is Nashville Today.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and the Hal Allen Clinic, specializing in minimally invasive robotic spine surgery and laser brain tumor surgery. For 40 years, the neurosurgeons of the Hal Allen Clinic have been national leaders in brain and spine surgery. And Davidson County Clerk's Office, with a reminder that most license plate renewals may be completed at area kiosk locations, including Bordeaux Library, Farmers Market, East Branch Library, and Bellevue. More at countyclerk.nashville.gov. And Hands On, powered by United Way of Greater Nashville, serving 9 counties across Middle Tennessee. Volunteer information at handson.unitedwaygreaternashville.org.
I'm Scott Tong. Historian Douglas Brinkley helps us mark the nation's 250th. He says a key date is when Abraham Lincoln won the presidency.
Abraham Lincoln is the quintessential figure in American history, not Washington and Jefferson. It is Lincoln.
Next time, Here and Now.
This afternoon at 1 on 90.3 WPLN News.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. There have been memorials and vigils from Nashville to Memphis since the passing of producer Tay Keith earlier this month. He was found dead in his Nashville apartment. An autopsy is still pending, but police say they do not suspect foul play. His private funeral service being held this week in Memphis, where his closest friends will be sharing stories of his work and lifting up his community. Some of those stories, they really came without official credit and are just coming out now. Hip-hop artist Daisha McBride here in Nashville shared one of those stories with our senior music writer, Julie Height. Here's McBride.
So I've known Tay for about 10 years. We were classmates together at MTSU. We're in the same program, so, I watched him come up as a DJ and then turn into a producer. And honestly, our whole dynamic, our whole friendship has just been really, really, really kind. I can just remember times throughout my career where he's just done nothing but help. I remember one time in college, I was trying to figure out a publishing situation, and he had just done the record with Drake and Black Boy. And one time we literally sat down in the student union for like an hour, and he just kind of really broke down some business things that I was kind of not as informed about, that he kind of was going through, and really kind of told me how I should set up my publishing and X, Y, and Z. One of the most impactful moments that I can remember with him is my song Birds. At the time in 2023, Birds was going crazy, was doing his thing, and it had been a couple months since I'd seen Tay, and randomly I was on a flight back from Miami to Nashville, and I'm sitting down on this flight. I remember it was a Southwest flight with open seating, and this guy comes up and like taps me on the shoulder, and he's wearing like all black, and he has a shiesty mask on, and I'm like, yo, who's the dude who just tapped my shoulder, who just came and sat right beside me in this flight with all these open seats? And he like pulls his mask down, and it was Tay, and he was cracking up because he was like, you was scared, wasn't you? And I was like, yeah, bro, I was. Like, don't do that again. But yeah, on the whole flight from Miami back to Nashville, we just chopped it up, and he was talking about Birds and how Birds was going crazy, and he immediately asked, so what you gonna do next? Like, what he phrased it like, what are we doing for the remix? And I was like, what do you mean, what are we doing? And he was like, the song's going crazy, so you should do a remix. And I remember just expressing like, I would love to do a remix, but I don't have the resources. Like, I'm still unsigned. I still only know so many people. So everybody who I would want on the remix is big artists like SZA, and I named Kehlani, and I named Black, and all these people. And about an hour later, as soon as the plane lands, literally before we're even off the tarmac, like as soon as everybody's phones get service again, he immediately gets on FaceTime. And I'm like, yo, who's he getting on FaceTime with? And he calls the head of Black's label and literally FaceTimes him and is like, yo, what's up? This is my friend Daisha. She has a record that we need Black for. Like, let's make it happen. And he hands me the phone and just gives me that cosign. And because, in this industry, a lot of times all you need is somebody to make the intro or somebody to give you the cosign. And at the time, he's the hottest producer in the world. So when somebody gives you that cosign, people are going to listen.
I got the x-ray on myself. I'm trying to see what's up. I'm at the weights trying to press my luck. I'm feeling heavy from lifting all of my people up, but that ain't no complaint. See, if music is the vehicle, the love is at the bank. I'm about to make a new deposit.
The next day, I was in a group chat with the head of the label and Tay, and we were able to get the remix situated, and Black sent in the verse about a week later. So that's a moment that I'm just forever grateful for, because that song changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my career. And I'm asking Tay, like, do you want to cut? Do you want a percentage? Like, you basically A&R'd this, like, let me repay you. And I just remember his response was like, nah, that's what friends are for.
Gotta bleep it, but it's a good one. By the way, even though Tay Keith was already getting famous in college when he was at MTSU, he finished his degree. He told Music Row magazine in an interview a couple years ago that he had something to prove as the first in his family to go to college. Came up in Memphis, but set up his company here in Nashville, and he started Dramatized with his friend and classmate Cambrian Strong. It's only the second Black-owned studio in the city. But that did position Tay to bring all sorts of artists here to write and record and get behind some of the most promising voices in Nashville's hip-hop and R&B scenes. He also worked with Raina Roberts, Kane Brown, and Ernest in country music, and he told Music Row magazine that his personal goal was his first country #1. Tay Keith was 29 years old. I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. As we close out this hour, we're remembering some community leaders who we have recently lost. Rosetta Miller-Perry died Friday at age 91. She was the founder and publisher of the longest-running African-American newspaper here in Nashville, started the publication in 1991, eventually relocated its offices to historic Jefferson Street, where it stands to this day. The paper circulates beyond Nashville to include Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Memphis. Miller-Perry was a Navy veteran, also founded the Black Chamber of Commerce, Nashville Black Chamber. She was a respected and outspoken voice for civil rights, a supporter of Black-owned businesses, and a proponent of telling stories about the achievements of African Americans in Tennessee. Journalist Dwight Lewis knew her well, joins us now. I wonder, how are you remembering Rosetta Miller-Perry?
Wishing that she was still here.
Yeah.
You know, wishing that that she was well respected.
Yeah.
But wish we could talk to her, still see what she would say today.
Well, my predecessor, Kalilia Colonna, interviewed her on this program in 2022 and talked about why she started the Tennessee Tribune in the first place. She didn't think the media was fairly portraying the Black community and was overly focused on negative themes and tropes.
African Americans believe what they see in the white press. The white press is the last word. And I think if the Black press doesn't come behind and tell the real story, you know, people would have made up their minds about what has happened or what they read in the white press. They don't see the other side. It affects the community. It affects these young people coming along.
She even called out the Tennessean, which you spent most of your career with, Dwight, what she was seeing in the white press. I wonder what she was seeing that maybe white people don't necessarily notice.
Well, white people probably see Vanderbilt, UT, and people who look like me. I have found myself in the last few years calling over to, and I'll say it, to WSM, VTV, wondering why don't you cover Tennessee State's basketball games? I don't see cameras there. Hardly ever see cameras there. Or hardly ever see reports about Tennessee State's basketball games. And I think Rosetta Perry was saying some of the same things. I am 78 years old. When I was coming up, I grew up in Knoxville. There was a Knoxville Journal, Knoxville News Sentinel. Journal was the morning paper. The News Sentinel was the afternoon paper. But I used to read also the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, the Atlanta Daily World. There were more stories, a lot more stories in those papers. They were Black-owned newspapers.
I see.
Then the Knoxville Journal, Knoxville Sentinel.
Knoxville didn't really have one, you're saying?
No, maybe a smaller one, but not. And so I think what she was saying is that why don't you cover our community? I remember I had a friend, he's deceased now, he was from Tuskegee, Alabama, went to Tennessee State, named James Carlisle. And this has been 20 years or so ago. But I was at a TSU basketball game one night, and he came up to me, he says, Dwight, do I have to do something bad to get my name in the paper?
Ooh.
And so I think people like Rosetta Perry and James Carlisle felt that way. But that's one of the reasons that a lot of people don't know. The Kerner Commission, following the riots of 1967, President Johnson established the Kerner Commission. It had more of a name to it, but it was chaired by Otto Kerner, governor of Illinois. And one of the things it said is that this nation was going in two different, it was divided, one black, one white. And it also looked at what caused the riots. And it said about the media has been backward in the way it covers the black community. Blacks don't trust the media because only you see mostly are bad things. And so still we still have some of those problems today. Things have changed. The Tennessean, we call it a mainstream newspaper. And that's why, and one of the things the Kerner Commission also said is that we need not only black reporters at those papers, but we also need editors to determine what gets covered.
Yeah. Well, she, Rosetta Miller-Perry, told our program a few years ago that when she started out, the Tennessee Tribune, she actually couldn't get black journalists to work for her, and that initially she could only get black reporters working undercover. They would use a pseudonym, and I think it was because they were worried about upward mobility or something like that. But why would it be hard for a black-owned publication to get black journalists working for her?
Perhaps it was the pay.
Well,
and I'm not sure what she paid. But she did have, later in his life, he's still living, Reginald Stewart, former Tennessean reporter who went on to work for the New York Times, lives in Silver Spring, Maryland now. You can go back in recent times, he's written for Rosetta. But maybe it's pay. I don't know. I feel this way. When I got my job at the Tennessean, well, when I retired from the Tennessean, I have written maybe 3 or 4 stories for the Tennessee Tribune, and I have to admit, I felt some pride in doing that, being able to do. I've coming along. I talked about the black-owned newspapers, the Pittsburgh Courier, Atlanta Daily Journal, but here now I'm working for a paper that's black-owned.
I see,
and so you get some pride. You get some pride in that. But I think it's maybe the pay, and maybe it's the pay.
Well,
I've never been approached, and Rosetta never said, "Won't you leave the Tennessean?"
Yeah, Dwight, why don't you come over here?
Yeah.
Well, you did have an interaction, it sounded like, though, where as you're writing for the Tennessean, because in your later years there, I suppose you were a columnist, kind of choosing what to call out in the city. And I think, what did she ask you, not to say anything?
Well, this was before I became a columnist. I started writing the column, I think, in 94 or 94. But one Sunday morning, there's a TSU, Tennessee State University, Fisk, Meharry Breakfast Club.
So kind of like the historically black colleges in town getting together.
Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
So I spoke that morning to the group, and following what I had to say, Rosetta stood up and she said, "Dwight, will you promise us that you will never write anything bad again about our leaders?" I'm the presidents of the college, different colleges. And I think I had maybe criticized President James Hefner. And I told her I cannot make that promise, because if I make that promise, I might as well give up what I'm doing. It's not, they're no different in a way than Chancellor of Vanderbilt or the president of UT or Chancellor of UT. But try to be fair. But she, and I can see where she's coming. Don't say anything bad about us. Like James Squall, I say, do I have to do something bad to get into the newspaper?
Right. Well, she was also a leader in the black business community, not just kind of in media coverage. How did she get people to go along with her? I mean, she started the Nashville Black Chamber.
Mm-hmm. So you need somebody to start. Let me just read you. Saturday, I went to a funeral for a woman named Betty Odie. Okay. And she belonged to the Howard Congregational Church, but the funeral was held at Greater St. John over off of over behind Lewis and Wright Funeral Home.
Okay.
And when I went in, I saw Jamie Isabel, a former Metro councilman. He's a Nashville businessman. And before we said hello, but he said, "Dwight, let me just tell you what he said to me." He says, "Mrs. Perry was a trail designer for modern day trailblazers to follow. She ultimately made walking in her trails much easier for all of us."
That's interesting. I know you, as a journalist, must hate cliches, trailblazer being one of them. Designed the trail.
Yeah. And I've had people, and I'm going to tell people like Robert Churchwell Sr., William A. Reed, they paved the way for me. They went in and caught hell. And she was looking for it. She wanted good things to come out of the black community. But she just didn't write about blacks. Sometimes there are other people, whites, Yuri Kanza, who's a Hispanic on the front pages. But she wanted you to be fair and she spoke up, and the paper is still needed today. Her paper is still needed. I hope that it doesn't end. And if people will go back and look, a long time ago, back in the 40s, 50s, there were black newspapers in Nashville, and they're still needed. Even though this world, our nation supposedly has changed, it hasn't changed enough. We have to do a better job. I shouldn't have to call Channel 4 or Channel 5 or Channel 2. Why don't you cover Tennessee State? Sure, you can go to Murfreesboro and cover MTSU, but you can't. Channel 4 is just up out on Knob Road, off White Bridge Road. Why can't you go to Tennessee State?
Do you think you've been more attuned to that since leaving mainstream media?
No.
Yeah. You saw it.
And some people came down to the Tennessean. We were on stage a protest in front of the paper about the coverage of sports at Tennessee State. And John Siegenthaler, who was an editor, invited him in, tell him to come in. But we have to do a better job. One day Siegenthaler, Joe 747 Adams was a good quarterback. And Siegenthaler said, I want to go out to Tennessee State and see the football game. And we went out there. Joe 747 was the quarterback. John Merritt was the coach. So we stood down on the sideline. After the game was over, John Siegenthaler said, Vandy plays at home next week. You got to go to the game with me. But you think about it, and people, we have to get out. When I started working the city desk at the Tennessean, there's a woman, Pauline, a woman who was head of the Metro Development Housing Agency. She was a big Democrat in town. But we bumped into each other, and she said, in Green Hills, and she said, I understand you're working the desk right now. I said, yes, ma'am. Don't forget there's a real world out there, that you just can't stay in your office, go to work, sit behind a desk, and then go back home. We all have to get out, especially journalists, and see the real world.
Well, Dwight Lewis, thank you for bringing us out into the real world as we remember Rosetta Miller-Perry on this occasion. Arrangements have now been released. A wake will be held Friday, July 10th, and a funeral the following day, Saturday, July 11th at Mount Zion Baptist Church in Whites Creek. Dwight Lewis, thank you for sharing about your friend.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville's a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode produced by Mary Mancini, Josh Deepin, and yours truly with help from Julie Height, Mariana Bacchiao, Camelia Burris, and Tony Gonzalez. Tasha A.F. Limley, our managing editor, Liv Lombardi, always making us sound and look good. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.
Vanderbilt's Master of Liberal Arts and Science program